he had no, oh, we will be recording, just an FYI. So his dad ended up having a stroke 25 years ago, and there was no assistive technology to help him out in utilizing, digital tools. And so he had to basically create them on his own. And so, from that point, that's where we are today with text help. Our vision is we believe that everyone has the right to understand and to be understood. And our mission is to unlock everyone's full potential through technology. And with that, with our tools and kind of how we think about what we're going to be doing today, it's really important to think not only about special education students. We're really talking about our toolbar as it relates to all students. When we think about students, especially coming out of COVID, and all the things that they have gone through, the trauma that they have faced. If I think about my own child, she's 17, AP student. She had a lot of anxiety, and that really came out full force in COVID. She ended up acquiring an eating disorder that we're still suffering with today, and really kind of fighting through that. And so some of those things that, I can see who she is on the outside, who are we on the outside that people can see, but some of those things that you may not see about her on the inside, if she didn't talk about it. She's 5'1". She looks of a normal weight of a 5'1" person, but she holds all this other stuff inside. And so one of our icebreakers is, we're going to get into this link. I think Nora probably dropped. Nora, did you drop the doc into the chat?
Will do.
Thank you. So if you can be anonymous. You can put your name on there. It's just going to be a quick little icebreaker of, who do people see on the outside about you? And then what might you be holding inside that they may not see, something more personal that people may not see, that may affect maybe your learning or your day-to-day life, or something that, that may affect your how you act in your day-to-day life, and or how it's affected you in the past, and your learning, or just your life in general. And so this is just a picture of me and my daughters and my grandbaby. I know I look too young to be a grandma, but it's true. And, so on the outside, again, I'm always smiling, I'm always happy. And one of the things that, for me, that people may not see right off the bat is that I have struggled as a single mom. And it's been very tough, but, through that, we've persevered, and we are this, this happy family on the outside. And quite frankly, we are a happy family, but there's a lot that has transpired that people don't see. So, I'm going to go ahead and go to that. I'll put it up on the screen, but if you guys can click on that, and if you're brave enough, and just to put that in, you don't have to put your name, but if you're up for it and you're willing to kind of share with us some of those struggles you have that we may not see on the outside, that would be great. Can you see my screen, Nora? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Getting back into virtual distance learning shouldn't be necessary, and we need to make that switch. Distance learning, so districts do have all the flexibility they need. from some districts that they want more flexibility when it comes
If, can I ask that you guys mute if you're not speaking to us directly, if you're not sharing out, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
but
So I see some participation there. I want to make sure everybody is able to access everything. I just dropped the link to the slides that we're using, as well as the link to this activity. So we'll be doing a couple of activities that are linked through these slides. So I'll try and make sure that everybody gets access to those in the chat.
Awesome.
I agree with you. And anybody that had any underlying anxiety, COVID definitely brought it out, didn't it?
Yeah, and I was, that's something that's definitely a reoccurring thing that I think Nora and I have seen is definitely the increase in anxiety. And we have heard a lot of that the sadness as well. And a lot of isolation, I think, brings on that as well. And so I think, we feel that, and I think we also need to make sure that we recognize that our students, our children, we're all probably feeling that as well. And so any way that we can lower that affective filter for our students is going to be a positive thing. And so I encourage us just to kind of think about that as we're working through this training. I'm going to let's get back to our slide deck. And that's kind of the lens I'm going to be focusing on as we work through the training. Nora, can you see my slide?
I sure can. Actually, not yet. We're still looking at the exercise.
Okay. Oh, my screen share paused. Okay.
All good.
Perfect. Okay. So Kathy and Brania shared with us that there's kind of some overarching ISTE standards that you as a district kind of think about, and they go along with empowered learner, knowledge constructor, and global collaborator. And that just works with leveraging technology to take an active role, curate a variety of resources using digital tools, and then collaborating with others and working effectively in teams. So we're going to also have a focus of those as we're working through some of the strategies that we've put together for you. And then universal design for learning, really, we're very connected with UDL and CAST, and they really work with the how, the why, and the what of the brain, the engagement, the representation, and the action and expression. And that we focus on options and support, the motivation, enthusiasm for learning for students, how we present our information and making sure that it's in different ways, supporting access and understanding, and then making sure that we offer options and supports to all so that they can create and learn and share in different ways that help them understand the information more deeply. And so when we're thinking about this, we also want to make sure that we're thinking about what barriers are in our classroom, not only for those students where we can see those disabilities or see maybe those things that we know that we can work with a student to help them, maybe see better, move them closer up to the classroom. If the student has a wheelchair, we know how to help them with that barrier. But what about those students that we can't see and we don't know how to help them, like anxiety or those types of things? How are we going to help them if we don't see that? And so some of those things that we need to consider, you know, if they do have low vision, if we have a paperback book, we can't make that text bigger. And so what are we how can we fix that? Or thinking about that, those barriers, how can we use digital tools to fix some of those barriers? And if you're using just one avenue or a design choice, then you're really only working toward one student's focus. And so working with tools like text help or digital tools that we can kind of work toward all student focus, then we can really get toward, you know, reaching all student levels. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and, now that we have kind of an idea of where we're heading, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nora, and she's going to give you an overview of the Read and Write toolbar, and then just help you access the toolbar and really introduce us more to Orbit Docs and how to access that as well. And then we're going to get into the strategies and really dive deeper into our lessons, which is super exciting.
Thank you, Corey. So I'm just going to switch over here for a moment. Can everybody see my screen okay? I am on slide 10 in our slides. So let me make this a little bigger so y'all can see it. So let's talk a little bit about the actual tools. I know many of you have had these tools for a while. For some of you, this is going to be like the first time ever that you've used these tools. So I just want to make sure that we're gonna do the technical part here before we get into the good teacher stuff. So I want to make sure that you have the tools and everything's enabled and you're able to use them. So this is the sort of boring technical part of our time together, and then we'll go back to Corey for some great teaching strategies. So I want you guys to feel confident that, like, once you have these tools and you have them set up, you're ready to go. I know they've been pushed out to your students, so they have those as well. So I just wanted to take a quick step back and talk about Read and Write for Google Chrome versus Orbit Doc. So if you have Read and Write for Google Chrome, you should have that little purple puzzle piece up near the top right of your screen. So when you're in the Chrome browser, you're going to have access to your extensions. If you don't see the little purple puzzle piece, this little gray puzzle piece is actually part of Chrome. And if you go down in here, you can see like all of my extensions. I don't need to see all of these all the time. So look what happens if I unpin Read and Write for Google Chrome. Did you see how that went away? And then I pinned it and it came back. So before you say, oh my gosh, I don't have the purple puzzle piece, I want you to take a quick look and see if maybe you do have it, but it's just not pinned in there. So that's the first step that I want you guys to take. So if you really and truly do not have it, then what you want to do is you want to go out and you want to download that from the Chrome Web Store. So I have a link here for both Read and Write for Google Chrome in the Chrome Web Store. So if you click on that slide, it's going to take you there, and you can see I already have it. So my option is to remove from Chrome, but if for some reason you didn't have it, your option would be to add. It's going to say different things depending on your domain. It's going to, you know, add, get it, but something indicating yes, I want it. So that's the Google Chrome. And then the same thing, if it turns out you don't have Orbit Doc, that's going to take you to the web store to get Orbit Doc. So those of you who were with us last year and using Read and Write may be saying, what the heck is Orbit Doc? We had a big update to our PDF interface just in the last month. And so formerly we had a tool called PDF Reader. And what that would do would give you like a little extension up here that was like a little gray box, and it had PDF written on it in purple. So when we introduced Orbit Doc last month, we actually took over the PDF Reader and changed it into Orbit Doc. So you'll know you have Orbit Doc if you have this little symbol with the two blue half circles. So as long as you're, you know, accepting everything, Orbit Doc should come right through. You should have it. It should already be like there for you. But if not, we can make sure that you go out and download that from the web store. So I want to take just a quick moment. Do we have any questions before we go any deeper?
Do you know if all of our kids automatically will have Read and Write downloaded on their Chromebooks now? Or will they
I
have to do it?
don't know if it was pushed out. Is Kathy with us? Do you know Kathy?
Kathy, no, she had to moderate a different.
Oh, okay.
Breakout.
So we'll
yeah.
double check. I think the intention was definitely to push it out to all of the students, but maybe have the teachers self-select. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I feel like the last training they said it was pushed out, but we can double check.
I'm pretty sure that it was pushed out, but like, I'll put that down as a question and we'll get back to you on that just to make sure. Whether we know, like, I know sometimes they push it out to all the students, but not the teachers, and then it's up to you guys to go and get it. Good question, Gina. Anybody else got questions? I see all my students had it last year. Okay.
Yeah.
And Rebecca, you don't have a school computer yet. Do you have do you have your school ID? Are you able to log into like?
I don't have. No.
Okay. All right. So if you wanted to download this to your like personal, it's a Chrome extension, so you got to be using the Chrome browser. But if you wanted to download this to your personal, anybody can have a 30-day trial. So if you wanted to download this to your personal and follow along today, you totally could.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Awesome. All right. So it looks like everybody has the basic tools or a way to get the basic tools. And I just wanted to remind you, we've worked a lot with Kathy and Kyle. They've gone through a whole, privacy review with us. We never, ever, ever have access to identifiable student information. So you will see a lot of permissions that kind of sound like we're Rumpelstiltskin and we're going to ask you to name our your first child after us or something, but we really don't have access to all that stuff. And so just make sure that when you see pop-ups from Read and Write or Doc that you go ahead and accept those. The district has already vetted this, so you're good to go. And then Read and Write for Google Chrome, the purple puzzle piece, that's what works in G Suite. So that works on Google Docs, it works on Google Slides, it works on Google Forms, and it works on websites in the Chrome browser. So that little purple puzzle piece is what you're going to be using when you're in G Suite. Likewise, when you're in Google Classroom, right? And then the Orbit Doc tool is for PDFs, whether it's PDFs in your Google Drive or whether it's PDFs in Google Classroom. You'll need to have that Orbit Doc piece. So I have some template here that we're going to use to practice some strategies for Google Docs. So if you guys press this button right here, it should bring you to a template, and you will open up that template. And when you open the template, you can see it's thinking a little bit. And I have the Read and Write already installed, and I already use it. You should be able to see up here, like my Google Drive is kind of thinking a little bit, and then boom, my Read and Write toolbar appeared up at the top of the Google Doc because I made a copy and it's now in my Google Drive. For those of you who haven't used Read and Write before, you probably have a little tab that looks like this. And if you do, and you press that little tab, I've already accepted all of the permissions, so it just opens for me. But if you haven't accepted the permissions, then you're probably going to have a little pop-up question for you there. So let's
see, Nora, Carol has a question.
Indeed. Carol, how can I help?
Can you do the first step one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were in slide 10, we clicked on, just a moment here, we clicked on this practice read aloud template, and it's going to take us to, we're going to be able to look at what we're making a copy of. This, if I press use template, this is going to make a copy of this document in my Google Drive. So you're going to have your own copy. Nobody else can see it. It's just yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, you betcha. And you guys will see again what happens when I open this. It's thinking a little bit, and then as it fully comes into my drive and finds a place to live, it's going to bring Read and Write into the document. So now it's done loading. There's Read and Write. If you haven't used the tools before, you probably have this little kind of like hanging tab. You'll pull down on that. You'll probably get some permissions and you'll want to accept those permissions. You may have one or two things. And just to remind you guys, whenever you're using extensions, you need to be logged into your Google Drive, which means you can see all of your documents and your Gmail and your classroom and all that good stuff. But you also need to be logged into the Chrome browser. So it is theoretically possible for me to be like Nora's personal Gmail, like Nora Rocks at Gmail up here and Nora at Text Help down here. If those two things don't match, you won't see your extensions. But I also want you to keep in mind that your kids are on Chromebooks. And you guys know when you open a Chromebook, it's basically like a brick until you log in, right? So you open the Chromebook, you log in, and then magically everything appears. Your kids will not have to do this step. It's just you guys have the freedom to be, you know, in and out of Chrome. So just make sure those two things match. You should see all of your toolbars and be ready to go. Is there anybody whose screen doesn't look like mine with this document and the toolbar?
Parker, TV off now. Show me
I
that you
can't.
can listen in the morning, or we're not going to be doing TV in the morning. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca, we'll be recording this so you can always follow along later. All right, so let's go ahead and work on a couple of strategies or tools that you guys can use to like kind of reinforce strategies. And just so you guys know, this template comes from a bigger template. And I have actually linked it in the bottom of the slides, or I thought I did, but I will add it later. There's a practice document that will actually walk you through every single icon on the Read and Write toolbar. I know it looks a little stressful if you haven't used this before. You've got a Ferrari. There's a lot going on here, but we're just going to focus on a few of the icons on the toolbar. And then, you know, if things come up and we need additional strategies, we can zoom into some of those other ones. But you guys will know if you can make a Google Doc talk, then you can make a PDF talk and you can make a website talk. So as you learn these tools, you'll see the same icons in different formats, even though the toolbars may look a little bit different. So the first thing that people want to do with Read and Write is, of course, the reading, right? So if you want to skip down here to the gray text and you want to learn how to make Read and Write read out loud, I'm going to click the play button. And I'm not sure how much you're going to hear on the webinar, but I'm going to click the play button. And it's going to start speaking. And I press the pause button to show you something. You can see that the sentence is lit up in one color, and then the word that we were hearing, have, is lit up in a contrasting color. And there's quite a bit of science behind this. We know that students read and comprehend 2 levels higher than their average reading level when they have that coordinated audio and visual support. So I like to point out the pause button. It's going to just keep on talking until I ask it to stop or to pause. If I just want to read one little part, I can just pick, like, you know, one sentence and press the play button and have it read that way as well. But I like to take the time to show students how to use the pause button. I am old enough to have had cassette tapes and a VCR, and I know the glory of rewinding or not rewinding, but most of your students probably stream their media, and it may very well be that they open a tab and just close it when they're done or want to stop. So many of your students may not be used to using the pause button. Likewise, if you have any online textbooks, I know it's great to have a human reader, but generally what the publishers do is hire the reader to read like a whole page at a time. They don't hire them to read a sentence and stop, and a sentence and stop, and a sentence and stop. So if you're reading your science textbook that's full of new terms to you, and you're halfway down the page and you need to look something up, guess what? There's no pause button. So you have to stop it, look it up, and then start again at the beginning. So take the time to make sure that your students really understand like the function of the pause button. Likewise, everything in Read and Write is customizable. So I'm going to go over here to my 3 meatballs. And I'm going to click on the options for speech. There are many different voices that I can choose. And we're an international company, so the US voices are down in the U's. Ava's my favorite. I can make her faster and slower. We were talking about kids that are reading complex material. If you wanted to just speak one sentence at a time and then you have to click, that might be a really good thing to do if you're using some kind of dense content area material. You can choose your translation language down here. And you can see there's a lot of different things. These ones that are up here at the top, these are not just translation, but we can do everything on the tools in those languages. And then I know some of you may be doing some dual language. So I wanted to make sure that you understood if I were to change this to, for instance, a Spanish voice, it's going to read what is on the page with Spanish phonetics. It is not going to change that thing into Spanish. So that's not the translation function. The Mexican Spanish is just the voice. So if I were to turn her on, instead of saying voice, she would say voice. But if I were to use Ava or one of the English accents on Spanish content, you're going to see it, it's not going to sound very good. She's going to say, "Donde están?" It's not going to sound good at all, right? So just know you want to match that up to the work that you're doing. If you're actually working in Spanish, you would go over to features here, and you can see the features, and then you can see the language. I can choose, if I choose Spanish, can you see how everything over here changed? If I change my functions to Spanish, I'm going to be able to do word prediction and dictionary and all of those great things in Spanish. So just know there's some kind of different levels of support there. So any questions about just reading things out loud? Okay. So you can practice with this as much as you want. And remember, now that you know how to do this on a Google Doc, you know how to do this on a website or anywhere. So pretty simple stuff. Your kids will figure it out quickly. And then the other thing that we wanted to focus on today was using the highlight tools. And I think the highlighters are really where the action's at with the Read and Write. If you want to do standards-based strategies, you want to dig into more kind of higher level thinking, the highlighters are very much where it's at. So you could use them to delineate different things. You could choose main idea and detail or compare and contrast or what have you. There's lots of different ways that you could do that. And I really like this example that's going to show us how to use those different highlighters to kind of sort and classify information. So if you want to follow along, you can. One thing I wanted to point out about Read and Write is you always want to click in the document and then click on the icon so that you have the same experience, whether you're on a website or a Google Doc. So it's asking us here to identify anything that is a plant with a green highlighter. So I'm scrolling through here and it looks like maple is a plant. So I'm going to make that green. And then animals are blue. And you kind of see how she's messing with you. I've got a blue dog and a blue frog. If you've got a blue dog, you got problems. Places are pink. So we're going to do Hawaii. And you might have noticed I'm double clicking on single words to select them. I don't have to scroll over them. So I could scroll over Georgia and highlight that, or I could just double click on it. And then colors are yellow. So yellow is yellow, but wait a minute, green is also yellow. If I want to remove a highlight, I'm just going to select it. And then I'm going to use that little broom up top to sweep it away. So here's the little broom. I'm going to sweep it away, or I can add that back in. So I'm going to go ahead and make that colors were yellow, right? Here we go. Okay. So when I'm ready, I'm going to collect my highlights. So it's one thing to lay highlights on a page, but we want to address a strategy specifically, and we want the students to participate in that. So more than just laying a bunch of color on a page, we are going to click on the collect highlights here, and we're going to sort by color. And in this case, we've used all the different colors. If I only wanted to see the blue ones, I could select just the blue ones. Another option is to sort by position. So if I think a place where you might use that would be literature study. Like if you were looking at like specific things from a character, maybe one was blue and one was yellow, and you wanted it to appear in the order that they happen in the chapter, you could do that. But I'm going to do, instead of position, I'm going to do color, and I'm going to click OK. And it's going to go to my Google Drive, the top level of my Google Drive. It's going to make me a new Google Doc in my Google Drive. And you can see there's a link back to the original document. And then this is a Google Doc. I can do anything that I would normally do with a Google Doc, right? So I can change the formatting, I can type in it, I can share it through Google Classroom, I could share it individually through Google Drive, any of the things that you would do with that Google Doc, right? And then this is the popular button. This is the ooh ah button that teachers really like. This is our vocabulary button. And so this only works on individual words. But if you have words highlighted and you click the vocabulary button, we have a pretty powerful dictionary and picture dictionary. And if I have these words highlighted and then I click the vocabulary button, it's going to go out to the top level of my Google Drive and it's going to make me a new Google Doc. Same thing. Again, it's just a real Google Doc and it's going to build a table. And that table has the word I selected, the meaning from the dictionary, the symbol from the picture dictionary, and then a blank column to do whatever I like with. And remember, I got there by highlighting words in the document and then pressing that vocabulary button. So this will work the same on a website, which means if you have an online textbook, you could pull like a vocabulary list from it. Or if you do like news article of the day, you could do that. I will warn you that like you'll have a lot of things called vocabulary list untitled if you don't. So I'm going to call it RCST vocab, right? So that I can find it again. And I wanted to show you guys a neat little trick that one of my school districts in Oregon came up with. So I can, landscape this, add extra columns, whatever I want to do. If you want to support students in their home language, you can go to the Google Tools and translate document for this whole piece here, right? And you can choose the language. So if you wanted to offer this to a student who needed it in Mandarin, you could do that. And it's translated that same exact sheet. And then you could go through and do this for any of your students, right, that needed that extra support in their home language. So you could go from Mandarin to, oh gosh, what have we got here? Filipino, whatever you want, right? So that's a neat little tool to have in your back pocket. So any questions at this point? So these are some of the tools that we're going to use today. You already know how to do, the reading and you know how to use the highlighters, which means that we can do that in lots of different documents. I wanted to make sure that you guys have the first chance to use the Orbit Doc. So we're going to actually work today with Orbit Doc. This is going to show you much more about like what it's like the first time you use Orbit Doc. But hopefully you guys have this. Remember, when you go to open something, it may ask you for some permissions. This is the part where we're gonna do something technical that's not maybe the easiest way to do things. We're not in your domain, so I can't share a Google Classroom with you. I want you guys to understand, like if you were to share a PDF through Google Classroom, which I imagine is how you guys would usually do it, because Google Classroom has the glorious make a copy for each student button that you want to use, right? We're not in your domain, so we can't do that. So I wanted to show you guys sort of the long way. Let's say you find a brand new PDF online and you want to use it and you want to bring it into Google Classroom. This is how you would do that. But remember, if you already have a PDF, you already own it, you know where it is, you can just load it to Google Classroom and be on your merry way, or Google Drive and be on your merry way. But we wanted to share this document with you. So what we're doing is we're asking you to go ahead and download this document. So you can see here, I do have an option to open with Read&Write for Google Chrome, which I could do in a minute to show you. But what I want you guys to do is to go to this link, and then you see here where you can download this. I'm going to go ahead and download this. And you can see it's just going into my downloads, right? And then when I am in my Google Drive, let me just open up my new Google Drive here. When I'm in my Google Drive, I am going to just upload that to my Google Drive. And let's see, it's under downloads. I'm going to do this. And it knows I already have this, but you won't have that pop up. So let's do recent, which again, you shouldn't have to do. It's just a little confused because I had two. So you can see when I double click on it, it just is going to automatically open with OrbitDoc. So once you have it in your Google Drive or Google Classroom, it's going to automatically open with OrbitDoc. So you can see the toolbar up here at the top. And you can see down here, it says OrbitDoc. You can also see instead of the name of the PDF in my Google Drive, it starts with orbit.texthelp.com. So that's kind of how you know that, that it's opening with OrbitDoc. So when you have everything set up and you've accepted all of the permissions, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to show you guys here. I'm looking at a preview of it. It's in my Google Drive, so I can open it up. Remember, if you're going to use OrbitDoc, it needs to be either in your Google Drive or in Google Classroom if you want to save annotations, right? So if you encounter something and you want to open it, you always have the option to set it up. So I can say open with Read and Write for Google, and then it's going to go to OrbitDoc and open. So I just wanted you guys to see some of the different ways that might look for you, but pretty much the same scenario. Just remember, once you have a PDF, you don't have to go through all of this. This is just how we're sharing PDFs with you from outside your domain. So I know that's a lot. Does anybody have questions? Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing because I know you guys are using Google Classroom. And again, on that slide, there's a video recapping all of this. So if you need to go back and do it more slowly, you totally can. When you look at your OrbitDoc icon, if you right click on that, you can go to options. And I want you guys to see what your different options are. You have two options here. You have open classroom PDFs directly. You want to have that checked for you, and you want your students to have that checked. If you do that, OrbitDoc is going to appear inside the PDFs that you share through Google Classroom. You can mark them up, your students can mark them up, and you can be sharing back and forth like what we're going to do with Corey's strategies. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand, you want to make sure that you have that checked. And we can work with the district if you guys decide you want the district to do that for you. And then it's completely up to you whether you want to open web PDFs directly or whether you want to do, remember when I looked at it in the preview and it said open with, and I chose Read and Write and opened it that way. If you want things that you look at on the web to open automatically that way, you can do that as well. So totally up to you. So I just want to make sure everybody got a chance to download this, this document. So yours should be blank like this with no annotations on it. So we're not sharing the annotations with you yet. So is there anybody who wasn't able to get to that document? Should look like that. Just taking a quick second. It looks like you guys are okay there. So just reminding you, we are currently on slide 10, and we're going to do some shared activities now. So you guys are ready to rock. If you've got the purple puzzle piece and the OrbitDoc and you use those, you're ready to rock. And we are going to go ahead and use that, that PDF that you guys just loaded in our next activity. So we're moving on to slide 11. And we will go ahead and have Corey jump into some hands-on strategies.
Awesome. Nora, can you see my screen?
I can indeed.
Awesome. Okay. So we were told that you guys use TCI's social studies curriculum. And so our objective today is learning strategies for using the Read and Write toolbar to empower students in constructing knowledge and collaboration, using examples from the TCI social studies curriculum. Today, we're going to practice comprehension strategies, collaboration, and cooperative learning, active learning. One of our main strategy will be expert groups, or it's also called a jigsaw, peer teaching. And then we're really going to be trying, this strategy really will be accessing all levels of reading and writing. So strategy number one, we do have another strategy, and it'll be close reading of complex text. That'll be strategy number two. We won't be able to get to that today. However, it will be in this slide deck, and you should be able to look at it and be able to utilize that as well. Once you have the knowledge of how you've already had the knowledge from Nora, and now we're going to utilize it in this strategy. And then you'll be able to then take that, I believe you'll be able to take that and utilize it in a close reading strategy as well, using the connected passage that I dropped in from the same PDF that you have from Nora. So the toolbar, the toolbar icons that we're going to be utilizing will be the picture dictionary, the dictionary. We won't use translate. We definitely can be using screen mask today, highlights, the collect highlights, and the vocabulary. Those are going to be the main ones that we're going to be using on the PDF. So the description of the strategy expert groups, can you just drop a chat, just a yes if you've used expert groups or a jigsaw? And if you've used GLAD strategies, I know this is a GLAD strategy as well, which is an ELL. GLAD strategies work with ELL. So it's definitely an ELL strategy. It's used in many different realms of education, but I just wanted to get a little heads up on if anybody has utilized expert groups. Okay, so that's good. So that gives me a little direction. So with expert groups, what happens is we are going to be putting students into expert groups, and you're going to be breaking up a reading passage or a text that you want students to really dive deeply into. And so you're going to be breaking up each specific area, and groups of students will become experts in like a small piece of that text. And so each group will become experts. And then what they're going to be doing is taking that expertise that they know in that specific group, and they'll then go and share out their expertise in a share out group. So everybody's bringing an expertise in one specific area to a share out group, and then they're teaching their peers what they've learned in their specific passage. So we're going to be working through an expert grouping on one specific area that we'll work through, and I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like. We're going to be taking it from Unit 1, Early Humans and the Rise of Civilizations, Chapter 4, The Rise of Sumerian City-States. So again, Nora and I got this off of the TCI website. So we're specifically going to be focused on Chapter 4. And the guiding question or the focus question is, how did geographic challenges lead to the rise of city-states in Mesopotamia? Yes, there it is. Project GLAD strategies. Awesome. Okay. So this is an overview. Again, students are going to highlight important information in the expert groups as they read the linked text with Read and Write toolbar, then fill in the process grid. So I've made a process grid for everybody. The process grid is linked in this slide deck. If you can click on that, you should be able to download and download the template. And we'll be working on this first process grid, the introduction process grid, 4.1. And so we are working through 4.1, the main idea, key vocabulary, and then we're gonna drop in 3 key details from 4.1 of the text. You should be able to download a template of this. You'll just use a template, and then it will drop into your own document, Google Doc.
And I just added the process grid to the chat so you guys can find it quickly.
I was just going to say that too. Thank you, Nora. Okay, so this can help expert groups learn about their chapter. These groups should be heterogeneous, so you don't want all the same level of students, because the thought is that we're all teaching each other even in that expert group. If the teacher would like, she can actually assign a leader, and that leader can help the group stay on track. They can ask guiding questions. They can really help support the group in any way they can. And I'll show you that as we work through the document. And so the way I've split up these expert groups in that document, if you looked at the reading, it's chapter 4. So there's going to be 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. So I just broke them up into those different sections. And those sections are going to be those expert groups. So what I would do is in a classroom, I would break up each section, and then I'd break up expert groups in those sections, depending on how many students I had. So maybe each expert group would only maybe have 3 students in them. And then a share group may have only 3 students from each of those expert groups. Wait, that didn't make sense. So then each expert group would have 3 students. So each share group would have then 7 students, but only 3 share groups. Does that make sense? No. So 7 groups will have 3 each in them. So say you have in middle school, maybe you have 30 students, right? 7, am I doing that right, Nora? 21. So maybe you have 21 students. You have 3. So you have 21 students, and you have 3 students in each expert group. Okay, so then each of those experts will then go to 1 share group. So then you're only getting 7 share groups with 3 students each.
So just to make sure I understand this correctly, after the students become experts, they're then going to go share with other expert groups. So everyone gets exposed to the content, correct?
Right, yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to access the text. So we're going to go back up here, and if you should have downloaded your PDF, and we're going to work through this PDF. Utilizing the Read and Write toolbar. So if I were working through my PDF and I'm looking at, so we want to talk about the main idea and key vocabulary. And I want key vocabulary. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. What might be some key vocabulary that you would like to pull out of this text? Do you want to drop it in the text in the chat box? I would pull out Mesopotamia. Awesome. Fertile, Neolithic, So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those in blue. Tigress. I'm going to go ahead and delete these. So right now, all of my vocabulary, I'm going to highlight in blue. Tigris, Euphrates. Anything else we want to pull out? All right, so with those, I'm going to gather those up. It'll gather the pink too, so I'm not going to worry about the pink right now, but I'm going to gather up the blue highlighters. Oh, that's not true. I apologize for that. I'm going to do this little icon here is the vocabulary. So I'm going to gather up the vocabulary. It'll drop it in just as Nora was talking about earlier. I'm going to label this chapter 4. Point 1 vocabulary. Then I'm going to take my link and I'm going to drop it into my process grid. Under vocabulary. So now I have my list here and it's already in my drive and I've got that set up for my key vocabulary for 4.1. Any questions on that right now? Nora, anything in the chat?
Nope, look like everybody's following right along.
Perfect.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Hi, this is Erin. I am curious. So on the doc that I have on my computer, it's basically the same doc that you're marking up right now. Like, how would I share this? How would I make this a template so that everybody gets their own?
Oh my goodness, Nora,
Are
take it
you,
away.
Erin, are you using Google Classroom?
Yes.
So you would have this in your Google Drive, right? Or wherever you saved it. And then you would
Yeah.
just assign it through Google Classroom. And then you want to make sure that you do make a copy for each student, right? So everybody has their own.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
easy peasy.
Thanks.
We did all that like super hard stuff because we can't Google Classroom with you, but like it's gonna be easy for you. You're just gonna
Okay.
go through Google Classroom like you normally would. And then just make sure, remember how we went in and looked at those settings and you had checked share with or activating Google Classroom, automatically opening Google Classroom. As long as you and your
Right.
students both have that setting, you're just going to be flowing like normal in Google Classroom. Nothing special you have to do.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome.
Wanted you guys to see the hard way to do it just in case you ever encountered that and had a question, but y'all won't have to do it the hard way we have to do it.
Awesome. Okay, so then moving down down our toolbar, we can also do the speech. This one, Nora, can you explain this one again? Because this is my tricky one.
You bet. This is that first button is click to speak. So you can select text in the that you want to read and press the play button. So the click to speak is going to be different. So now that you got the click to speak on, I want you to just click anywhere in the text. and it's going to read. Now click somewhere else in the text. So just click anywhere else in the text, and it could be the title, it could be farther. Yeah. So you can just kind of like bebop around with the click to speak, and especially if you're not a conventional reader, you can kind of cruise around on the page and see what's happening. But if you want to read in a kind of a classic linear fashion, let's go ahead and stop the click to speak. So hit that square stop button, Corey, right? And then, so turn off the click to speak so it's not red anymore. You got it. And then now you can just select some text and press the play button. The triangle. So 2 different ways to read. It just kind of depends on student preference, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a tricky one for me. I didn't get it when I was first doing it. All right. So something else that you can do is while you're having students read this, if they're struggling with vocabulary, you can put up the dictionary, but you can also put up the dictionary and the picture dictionary. So you can have these both up while they're reading. For some, you can make the PDF big or small depending. So this, I've got a lot on the page right now, so it's kind of covering up my screen. But you can have these both up so that students can read, and they can, anytime you click on a word, it'll come up with not only the picture, but it'll come up with the definition. So for me, that would be super helpful for me reading. And I think it'd be super helpful for your students as well, just so that, anytime that they are struggling with a word and they need a picture, they need something, a definition, especially in an expert group, when you have a leader who may be a little bit higher proficiency in reading and vocabulary, they'll be able to help students out with this and real time. So they can click on that, get the definition, and then maybe that's still something that they can drop into a vocabulary list, which I always think is important. So that's one thing. The screen mask, I'm gonna try and go ahead and do this. The screen mask is, or not the screen mask, sorry, the
screenshot reader. In case you have
Thank you.
something that's hard to read in the text, it's usually like what you're doing right now, Corey, is usually like the diagrams may not be formatted correctly for the computer to read it.
So you drag it and let me see. Not always, when pictures aren't accessible, sometimes it just does the kind of the formatting behind it. So it doesn't always read the words that are on that you see. But when it does, then it'll read exactly what's on there. So it'll read from caves to city states, it'll read 2 million BCE. So that's really important to know as well. And then this is the screen masker. And the screen masker is just for those students who struggle with too much on the page. Maybe they, that's another, if they do have anxiety with having too much on the page, or they're students who have dyslexia and need less is more, they can come over here and they can change the opacity of the background, the reading opacity. They can make it darker or lighter if they want to have just, sorry, hang on just a sec. If they want to have the background dark or light, or they just want to have something to help them underline, and they can follow along as an underline, they can do that as well. So that's a nice little add-on as well. And then another thing with the highlighters, so we're going to be going into now the main idea and details that we're going to drop into our expert groups. So another with the highlighters, I might go in with my main idea and I'm going to highlight with pink. I'll highlight the main idea with pink, and then we'll go in and do the 3 details with yellow. And so But first, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and write with our text. We're gonna go ahead and drop in a text box here. And we are gonna talk about what the main idea is. So in chapter 3, you learned how people in the Fertile Crescent began farming and living in small villages. In this chapter, you'll see how small Neolithic villages grew into large, complex cities. So what might be the main idea? So the main idea of this chapter or this section is how small villages grew into cities. So that's our main idea. So we have our main idea down. You can do, you can play it. So you can check what you've wrote, which is super important. We can move it around. You click on it, you can use this little button to move it around. Whatever you would like to do. What I did last time is I actually ended up putting the main idea where I found it, and then I ended up putting the details where I found those as well. So that was the main idea, and then I came down here and I found one detail. The earliest cities in this area date back to about 3500 BCE. These first cities were like small independent countries. So I think for me, that was one other detail that I thought was important. So key detail number 1. First cities were like independent countries. With one ruler. And then I wanted to move this right over here because I know that's where it was. So that to me was important. And so you can just start going through all of these with the key ideas, details, etc. So that's another. I'm going to pause here and see if you have any questions so far.
I thought I would take a quick minute to kind of reinforce what you were saying, Corey. So these notes are going to help your students not only to, be able to like mark some information in there, but to also read it after. You saw how you can press the play button and hear what you read after. A lot of times when kids, circle and annotate things with just like the scribing, the little pen, the stylus, they're not always sure why they did it in the aftermath. Like if they go back 2 days later, this way they can actually hear it played. And I just wanted to point out, you haven't gotten into these other tools, but word prediction and the speech input. So they could actually speak and have the words go right into that box and then come back 2 days later and play back what they wrote.
I have a real quick question. It's Erin again. So on the doc that I opened, I can't see your note that you made.
No, you can't. So we have separate ones.
We had you download the doc
Guys,
yourself so you
here-
can make your own notations. So Corey's not sharing directly with you. If you wanted to like follow along with what she's doing in your doc, you can. So she's
Okay.
modeling for you, and then you can, mark up your own doc.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So then what I would do is I would then collect my highlights again, and these are going to be my details and my main idea. So if I were to collect highlights, I'm not going to do position. I'm going to do color this time because my color shows the vocabulary was in teal and my my details and my main idea are now in pink. So I'm going to collect those by color and I'm going to pull them out. And now I have my main idea and details are in pink. So I would grab these and I would talk to my students, or in the expert group, we would discuss like, okay, well, I think, you know, the main idea is this. What do you think? And so we'd have that discussion in that expert group. Here are some details that I think are important. And so in that expert group, they would share out with each other what they thought were the details and why they thought those were important. And then they'd add to that expert group form. And as they did that, they're getting deeper understanding of the text. And so from that point, then they'd share out to the share group. Just some other things to note on because we're definitely running out of time on the doc this is a push pen. The push pen, you can also do the same type of thing. You're just going to push pen. This is the push pen icon right here. You're going to push it here and you'll type in whatever you would like. And once you're done, you click off and it'll create the push pen here. And that's just so that you don't have the text on the document. You'll just have this little push pen. And once you click on it, it'll show what you've written. Any other thoughts that you have before going on from this document, Nora?
I had a question.
Sure.
Some of my tools on dashboard are grayed out. They're not appearing in my document on the Read&Write dashboard at the top of.
So are you using your district login? Are you logged in with your Redwood City
Yes.
login?
And because when I log in to you, it'll drop me into Safari, and Safari isn't supported by Orbit. Obviously, it's a different search engine. So
are you in Safari?
I'm kind of in both. I'm actually back.
That's why. Yeah.
in
So
Google. No, I'm
these are-
actually in Google. I dropped it into my drive. I've got it in here. I've got Read&Write showing up, but.
So yeah, it's not going to be able to pull everything in unless you're fully in
Right.
Chrome. So are you signed into Chrome and into your Google Drive? That's probably where you're getting part of the toolbar.
Right. So if I drop, right. So even if I'm only signed into Chrome.
You got to be in both Chrome and your Google Drive. I'm going to take a quick second to share.
Yeah, I'm not in Safari.
Okay, so you're in Chrome.
It automatically drops me into Safari, obviously, because whenever, right, you're linked to Safari. So and so I'm working through Google Drive, obviously Chrome, and it's still grayed out, even if I'm not in Safari.
If you were in Google Chrome browser and you're in your Google Drive, you should have access to everything, but you have to be logged into the Chrome browser. So when you look at your Chrome browser, you look way over at the corner. Do you see like a little picture of yourself with your school ID?
Yeah, no, I'm logged in to the Chrome browser.
I had a similar problem.
Okay.
Can I just speak to this real quick? Because Caitlin, I had the exact same thing.
Yeah, no, I'm logged in. Yeah.
So what the thing is, it looks gray, but if you click on it, it actually pulls down a menu below it with the options and you can still do it.
Oh,
so like on the highlighter, on the highlighter.
So even though it's got so I can see part of it, the only drop down, I can see that. So it's still active.
Functional.
It's just showing the little white circle with the slash through it, which is okay. So you're saying it's still active even though it's grayed out?
Well, in mine it is. Like for instance, the highlighter is gray, but when I click on the gray highlighter, it pulls down another little menu that does have all the highlighters available and it does work. So you can check on
Oh, it
yours.
does. Okay. So.
And
even
so are
though-
you
Okay.
looking at so you guys are looking at Orbit Doc, not Google Docs.
Yeah.
So
No, I
the
got it.
interface,
Thanks, Erin.
yeah, you're right. Thanks guys for bringing that up. The interface is slightly different on Orbit Docs from how it is on Google Docs. We didn't want to take over too much of your screen, and this is a good example. This document is pretty
Okay.
dense. So we
Okay,
didn't want
I
to
got
take
it.
over
Thank
too
you.
much of your screen. So you guys got it now. You actually have to
thanks.
just pull down the highlighters so that they're not like taking up too much real estate, hopefully. Does that help?
Perfectly. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Am I sharing my
Yep.
screen again? I'm
Yes.
good.
please.
Okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to move on because we're pretty late on time. I don't know if you guys have another session after this, but that's a quick overview of the PDF reader and the toolbar. It works very similarly on a web page or a doc. In fact, there's a little bit more you can do on a document or a web page. So I'm going to go back to our Google Slides. So once you would take this information and you're dropping it into your process grid, you have your vocabulary list, you have your, then you're going to drop in your, you already have your details, your key ideas and details that you're working with your students, and you're dropping those into the columns as well. Then you're going to go and discuss all of that. Once your process grid is complete, then you're moving on to your share groups. And we also have a share group process grid for that. If you want to click into that, you'll see what that will look like. And what you're going to end up doing here. Okay, thank you, Nancy. Enjoy the other PD. We'll move quickly through this. So at the end of all the expert groups, and then when you come in to share your share group, by the end of your share group, you should have all 4.1 complete, all 4.2 complete. By the end of chapter 4, your process grid for share groups and your chapter 4 will be all filled out. And by the end of this chapter, then your students have a really great testing kind of tool to study from. And they should have a really great understanding of that chapter, not only from their peers, but also from, what they've learned themselves and from what they've taught themselves. Does anyone have any questions on the share group process grid? I know this was super fast. We started out really late, and I apologize for that. You can definitely email me later. I know we have a very short amount of time. Awesome, thank you. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just go to the next slide really, really quickly. This is the close reading of complex text. I did drop in a connected passage to that. It's the end reading, detecting the past clues from archaeology. It's the reading further section of that specific chapter, chapter 4. So it's at the bottom, and close reading of complex text. All that is just reading through a text 3 times. Each time you're reading, the students are getting, they're reading for a different purpose. They're annotating text. They're reading for whether it's vocabulary, whether it's for the meaning or for the details or, excuse me, for any other aspect. You can read through that strategy. And if you need more information on that, I can give that to you as well. But those icons on the toolbar can really help students. That's an EL strategy. That's definitely a SPED strategy. That's a strategy for all students, truly. So if you need any more information on that, I would definitely be willing to help you out with that. Just definitely email me, Nora. My email's on the slides. So if Do you have any other questions, anything else before we can, before I know you have to leave? All right. This last slide, just really quickly, just, just some helpful hints, making sure that the classroom is set up in an appropriate way for all students, making sure you have everything, all your digital tools are set up to master those icons. We have a ton of videos, a ton of support for you. If you need support, please do not hesitate to reach out to Nora, to Kathy, to Branya. They're really good support, and we have a really great connection with them. And then making sure that you start from the beginning of the school year, and you can use this strategy, the icon, the toolbars throughout any of your subject areas. So I really encourage you to do so and make it an everyday usage for your students, because the more that they practice, the more they'll master it. And I think that's all I have. Nora, did you want to end with anything?
Just wanted to thank all of you for coming today. Sorry we had a little bit of a late start, but hopefully you got enough there that you can kind of run with it. We are recording this webinar, so if you want to follow the recording later, you'll be able to use the slides and follow along. So if you wanted to kind of recreate the scene of the crime, you'll definitely be able to do that. And we appreciate having time with you this morning. We definitely enjoy partnering with Redwood City. If you guys, want to take this a step further, just let us know. We are happy to help any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.